Gabe, Ellie can't turn their camera on.
Okay.
Gabe, Ellie can't turn their camera on.
Okay. Well, who's watching live? Oh, that's me. Sorry. I was like, who's watching it live? Okay, but yes, I heard you. Okay, yes. I forgot to tell Mackenzie about the meeting, so she may not be joining us, but.
Okay.
Aaron, is that you on the phone?
Yes, that's me.
Okay, wonderful. If you do want to talk, because we're still going to keep everyone muted, just text me so I can unmute you so you can talk.
All right, we'll do.
Yeah.
All right, Gabe, are we ready to begin?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I hereby call to order the first meeting of the Emergency Legislative Council on June 3rd at 6:36 p.m. Roll call has been taken as people arrived into the meeting, so we will now move into unfinished business. And as this is the first meeting of the Legislative Council, there is no unfinished business. So moving into new business, we will start with item A, FB-63-002, COVID-19 Student Mask Availability Funding Bill. Gabe, would you like to read?
Sure. And Mackenzie is getting on so she can talk about it. But Funding Bill 63-002, COVID-19 Student Mask Availability Act, author Colleen Osterman, Treasurer of the Association, and Mackenzie Haas, Vice President of the Association. I'm going to skip through the whereas parts, and I'll just go into the be enacted parts. So be enacted by the Student Senate that the Wichita State Student Government Association allocate emergency funding out of the association's auxiliary fund to assist student affairs during the COVID-19 crisis in purchasing protective masks for the student body. The Wichita State University Student Affairs Division requested financial assistance from the association to purchase a cloth mask for students who will be returning to campus in the fall. The aforementioned masks will be made available free of charge to all students and are meant to ensure that every student is capable and complying with university policies on face coverings on campus. Student Affairs and the student government discussed the cost of creating the mask here on campus. Manufacturing of the mask is underway and is estimated to cost $14,000 to finish. In consideration of this, the President's Cabinet and the Association's Treasurer have recommended that the Senate, in this case the Legislative Council, approve $7,000 for the purpose of matching Student Affairs contribution to the student body. This proposed allocation would total $7,000 in money spent out of the auxiliary account for the 63rd session. The remaining balance of the account would be estimated, and this is estimated because the final amount is for the fiscal year 2022 will not be available until the end, will be $82,784.
Thank you. Mackenzie, would you like to give an authorship speech about this bill? Sorry, Vice President Haas.
No problem. Yeah, just that I think it's really important for us to be able to protect our students. And that means having masks ready for students who come on campus and aren't able to provide their own. And I think partnering with Student Affairs was a smart idea in that we're only paying half of the amount and it's being produced on campus, which I don't know. I just think, I think that's the best way we can go about it while also protecting and providing for our students.
Thank you, Vice President Haas. Does anyone have any questions for the Vice President? Hold on, I can't see hands. There we go.
Thank you. Yes, I'm doing it right now.
Senator Ratcliffe.
So do you know how the masks are going to be distributed, or what do we know about that yet?
Yeah, so the masks will be at 3 different locations. They'll be at the RSC Shocker Hall and the Shocker Support Locker. So students will just come by and pick one up if they need one. We'll be telling students. Terry Hall sees a lot of students in her office, and obviously we see students in our office, and ODI, all of the student affairs departments will know where they're at, so they can refer students to those areas to go pick one up if they need one.
Thank you. Senator Thompson.
And for the masks that are not claimed, is there like a specific stockpile that will be kept throughout the first and second semester, or will they just be like thrown out?
I'm sure they will be kept. I'm not exactly sure where or who will keep them. I'm sure student affairs maybe, but they won't be thrown out. They are cloth masks. Cloth, Gabe? Or are they different material?
Yeah, we'll probably maintain them. Whatever is not picked up, we'll probably stockpile them in the shocker support locker so that they're a lot more readily available. But yes, if they're for whichever ones are not claimed, we'll maintain them and utilize them for spring if we have to.
Thank you. Senator Day.
Do you know how many masks this will be able to purchase?
Yeah, we're purchasing a total of 2,500.
I have a question. Where are these masks being produced? Like, who's producing them?
Go Create is producing them on campus.
Senator Flores.
So I work at a fabric store, which has been like dealing with lots of questions about like how to make the best masks. So do we have any like sort of like blueprint or like pattern that people have produced? Because I know that it like does affect the efficacy of the masks depending on what fabric you use, or if you have like the interfacing, or if it's like even using like elastic behind the ears, or it's like tied behind the head. There's just like a lot of different things that I have questions about. And I wonder if there was like any source for that.
Yeah, I don't actually know how they're made, what the efficacy is the word you used, what that is like for these specific masks. I am not sure. Gabe has tried it out, and I mean, I think they do the job, their mask. Gabe?
Yeah, Senator Flores, a few things. So I'm right. I'm not an expert math maker, so forgive me if I sound like an idiot, because I don't really want to. It's been a day, but they're one that you tie in the back of your head. I am actually going into the office tomorrow, so I can take a picture of it and like take a picture of the whole thing and then send it to you all so you have it, so you can take a look at it. But they are ones that Go Create. They worked with someone in Wichita, and I don't know who that someone is, to get the design of it made and to ensure that it met the CDC compliance of cloth mask. But I can get a picture of all of it, and I can send it to you all so you can take a look at it and see for yourselves. I don't know if that's helpful or not. I'm sorry, I don't have a specific answer to your question, but we can look into getting some of those specific answers, and I can send you a picture of what it looks like in person.
Also,
Okay,
sorry,
go ahead. No,
the
you can go ahead.
safety and the Safety and Wellness Committee has been looking at how to match the CDC guidelines as well. So Camille Childers, who is the director of student health, has been making sure that everything looks on the up and up for, like, obviously our PPE that we have on campus, and making sure that our students will be protected.
This is just a first read, so we can have everything sent to us, and then at the next meeting we will actually vote. So there is time to get new information. Senator Ratcliffe.
So are they still going to be allowing students to bring their own masks and stuff like that on campus? And
Yes.
then what are they going to do as far as, are they going to recommend them if their masks don't follow like the guidelines and stuff like that? Are they just going to have masks for them as well too then, or what are they going to do about that? Do you know?
I do believe it is the student's responsibility to bring, well, it will be made clear that students are expected to bring their own mask to campus. I believe that it's the student's responsibility to make sure that they are CDC guideline masks. I am not sure. And I also don't know that there's any way that we can police masks and enforce students to have the correct types of mask. I know that these masks are pretty much just for if students cannot buy their own mask or cannot provide their own masks. We will have some on campus. Also, departments like specific offices will have disposable masks in their office, so that if a student shows up to the office and doesn't have a mask, they can provide that while they go and do their advising appointment, or just different offices will have those readily available as well.
Senator Kirk.
Yes, this is more of it's a question, and Gabe, when you take these pictures, if you could make this clarified for me. There have been up in the air with these cloth masks on whether or not they need a filter. I would like to know whether or not there is a lining filter to make sure that when you breathe, it doesn't go through. So when you take these photos, if I could just if we could see whether or not that there is a lining filter in the middle. So since this is the first read, so we can be clear on that.
Yep, will do.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the Vice President? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, Vice President Haas. As this is a first read, the questioning period is now over, and we will move into item B, FB-63-003, Wichita State University Student Government Association, COVID-19 Economic Relief Act.
Funding Bill 63-003, the COVID-19 Economic Relief Act, author Colleen Osterman, Student Body Treasurer, and Mackenzie Haas, Student Body Vice President. Again, I'll read through the just enacted part. So be enacted by the Student Senate that the Wichita State Student Government Association allocate emergency funding out of the association's auxiliary fund to contribute to the Wichita State University Foundation's COVID-19 emergency fund in order to assist Wichita State students financially during this crisis. Wichita State University Student Government Association was approached by the foundation's COVID-19 emergency fund for a second time. The foundation explained that there were several students who they were not able to assist. In response to this clear and present need, the Wichita State Student Government President, Vice President, and Treasurer reviewed the proposed fiscal year 2020, this should be 2021 budget, sorry, and concluded that the association could allocate $10,000 to the fund. The money would be a one-time donation taken out of the auxiliary account known as its reserves account. In consideration of this, the President's Cabinet and Association's Treasurer has recommended that the Senate approve $10,000 for assisting students through the COVID-19 emergency fund. The proposed allocation would total $17,000. That also includes the mask, so sorry. Spent out of the auxiliary account for the 63rd session. The remaining balance of the account would be estimated until the end of the current fiscal year will not be available, will be $72,784.
Vice President Haas, would you like to give an authorship speech?
Yeah, so Colleen said several students, but I did look the other day, and when I met with Shilu Surrender a few weeks ago, she told me that about 700 students don't qualify for the CARES Act funding. And they had, at that point, roughly $40,000 left in the foundation fund. That money has now been allocated. I'm not sure how many students haven't received funding from the foundation fund, but the numbers that Shilu gave me, if they were to have allowed or to given money to all 700 students, they would have ran out, and there would still be students who had applied by the early deadline that weren't able to qualify for the CARES fund, the CARES Act money, and there wouldn't be money for them in the foundation fund. So that being said, we looked at how we could help and what more we could do as a department. And she said that also other departments are looking at how they can help as well, so that the foundation does have a little bit more money that can serve the general student population. The issue with the CARES Act funding was that it couldn't go to any DACA students or any of our international students, among other populations, just because of government regulations. And so we have, I don't know, I felt like it was important for us to have the conversation about giving money to the foundation.
Are there any questions for the Vice President? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, Mackenzie. We will now move into item C, FB-63-004, Association Budget for Fiscal Year 2021.
Yeah, okay, so I am going to go over it. I'm also going to be the kind of author with it too, just so that you kind of know where we are. So when we started this last session, so this would have, for some of you who are returners, you've seen our budget before. For our new folks, we have to get our budget reapproved. So when we submitted our budget in January to the Student Fees Committee, we sent a request for about $316,000 of student fees for our budget. The Senate at that point approved the recommendation or the request, and then it was forwarded to the Student Fees Committee, who then made a first initial cut. So we received about $11,000 cut the first round. And then in this session, the student fees package that you all approved at our last meeting took about another $5,000–6,000 off. So what we are bringing to you all today is the most updated proposal of how to spend those dollars. So I'm going to go through it so it kind of makes sense. If you have any question, feel free to ask. And it might be helpful. I'll go section by section. And if you have a question about that section, if it's okay with the speaker, that might be easier to kind of go through the budget itself.
Yes, we can do that.
Awesome, perfect. Okay, so the way that we kind of have it broken down in section 1, so the number 335 is a number across the entire student government that includes these 4 funds. So our money is spent in 4 different accounts. The normal general student government fund, our student funding, which is our individual organizational funding to the money we give to students to go to conferences, events, our student advocate, and then our scholarship, so our educational opportunity fund. So you can kind of see the requested numbers was our original number. Our proposed number came after the fact, and then our actual is how much when we redid our budget again with the number we were approved to receive, this is how we broke it down from there. That part's not super interesting because it doesn't tell you anything, so we're just going to skip that one and go to section 2, which actually tells you the breakdown. So our recommendation for fiscal year 2021, which is the fiscal year we are coming up on, goes as follows. So this is the main student government org. So our salaries, last session, the Senate approved a request to pay 40% of my salary. And then we have an office manager that we have in our office as well. So for salaries to include the 40%, to cover the 40% of my salary, as well as our student advocate, office manager is $53,000. Benefits that go with that range to be about $10,639. So that encompasses the actual staff for the student government. And then our executive and legislative stipends is $90,000. When you see the increase to it, it's in 2 different areas. One, it includes our transition pay that we pay for all of our members of the student government that are paid positions. That number includes their transition. So instead of us waiting until the end of the year to do it, we went ahead and put it into the budget now so that it's there. It also includes a new position for the director of media. To subsidize that cost, we're taking it from our reserves for this year, but we wanted to just show you the all-encompassing number for that. So that's the section for salaries for the student government. And then operating expenses, we have an office, so we have to maintain our office, including printing, office phones, technology, all those things. So we're putting $2,700 towards operating expenses, $2,000 towards office supplies, and $3,500 towards our budget, our technology budget. You can kind of see again the original request, the second round request, and then the actual request we're putting forward. So the third column is the actual number that we're putting forward for our recommendation. Then our advertising budget, so all of our marketing expenses and everything, we cut about $1,000 from there. So we brought it down to $4,000. Each of our committees, after the first round of cuts, we cut all of our committee programming budgets down a little bit. And then in this next round of cuts, we maintained them at the same level of our second number. So diversity, empowerment, and inclusion will get 625, safety and student services will get 825, academics affairs will get 320, ways and means will get 425, and government relations will get 830. Our Inspire program is $2,300. Our Senate retreat budget, so we give the speaker a budget to host the Senate retreat for twice a year. It's $1,500. Our end of the year banquet, $1,800. Our Shocker Leadership Award sponsorship, so we sponsor the 3 organization awards, is $2,000. Association events, $1,690. Cabinet retreat, we give the student body president $300 to host a cabinet retreat. And then lobbying efforts and K-board travel, $2,500. So when the president and other members go to the Kansas Board of Regents, we pay for that to happen. Now they're online. I have no idea if they're going to go back in person. So we're still providing the dollars just in case they return back in person. Our live streaming budget, depending on how things work out in the fall, we may be too big to be in 233 because of occupancy numbers because of COVID-19. So we will probably be moving locations. And if we move locations, we can no longer live stream because that's where the cameras are. But there may be some alternatives we can look at. So we still put some funding in there just in case. And that's main student government. So then we also employ a graduate assistant to help with the Shocker Support Locker. So their salary is listed there. We did cut about $2,000 from our student assistants for the Shocker Support Locker as well. With the reduced number of hours that we're putting on in the fall because of COVID-19, we reduced the dollars in that area as well. And then the benefits for the student assistant and the grad assistant is located there. For the advertising for the Shocker Support Locker, we cut those dollars and moved them into the main advertising budget, so we didn't have 2 separate advertising budgets. And for the Shocker Support Locker operations, so dollars we use to purchase supplies, whatever we need for the locker itself, $7,000. And then we also cut the office supplies budget for the Shocker Support Locker, and we're going to absorb that into the student government's office supply budget for now. And then we pay the tuition for the graduate assistant as well. And then our 2 elections areas, one of them is the operations for elections, and then the other one is their stipend. So $3,200 goes to pay for the actual election in the spring, and then about $3,000 goes towards their stipend. So that was part of our statutory requirement for the commission. So I will pause
Dave, I do
there.
have a question about that.
Yes.
So why did the number go down originally for the election operations and then we brought it back up?
Yeah. So when we, let me show you 2 numbers that will help make sense. So this fringe benefit line, there was $14,000 in there for 2 reasons. We last semester moved all of our paid positions into student employee positions. With that move we had to add benefits to those positions, unemployment, et cetera. Mid-semester, after we submitted our budget, the state came back and said we couldn't do that. So we moved it back into stipend, but we had already requested the money and the money had already been approved for us to have the benefits for those positions. So the decrease in there went to kind of subsidize some of the areas in which we took cuts from so that we didn't have to maintain such a drastic cut. Elections was one of them. And then our committees were the other to maintain not having to make any more cuts. So that's where some of the extra piles of money, there was about 4-ish thousand plus about 500 from the student advocate fund that had that money. So we kind of redispersed that to other areas to kind of bring those areas back up a little bit.
Got it.
Other questions about this main section?
Senator Thompson.
Just so I can understand better, what warranted the increase in actual funding for association association events?
Yeah, so we looked at that particular area. We cut some other spaces that we didn't know where we necessarily were going to need it at. So for example, we cut some of the money from the Inspire program. We cut some of the money from the cable or travel area. We cut some of the money from live streaming. Without us kind of knowing what things were going to look like. For example, if we were back in 233 and we already made the cut to the budget, we needed to put the money somewhere. So we just put it into the programming account. Depending on how things play out in the fall, if we're back in some of these spaces, we'll pull that money back out to go back into those areas so that we can subsidize those areas and not take those into the negative. So the association event line took the increase just so that we could have the money set somewhere. If we weren't going to use it in live streaming because we can't do live streaming, then we would be able to use those dollars elsewhere. On the back end, so on the actual budget system, it's all in like one big pool of money. So how we spend it, as long as we get permission from the Senate to do it, it's fine. But we just threw it in there. That way we knew that's where we put that extra money just in case we needed to move it out.
Are there any other questions about this portion of the budget? All right, great. Seeing none, Gabe, move on to the next section.
Yeah, so then the next one is the student funding areas. So these are the individual funding, organizational funding, and summer. So traditionally, each of these funds, individual and org, had $30,000 in them. And then summer funding, we put $3,000 was the original request. In the next two requests, we more than likely will not be able to spend this money because of current travel restrictions that are in place. And if that becomes the case, then we have $50-something thousand that sits there that isn't going to be spent because of the travel restrictions. So we are going to be working with Senator Hull, who's the chair of Budget and Finance, to kind of revisit some language in in that statute that kind of talks about travel. We had a student who had asked about a virtual conference for the fall, and our language currently doesn't allow that to happen because it says travel. So there may be some other opportunities for us to still continue to spend those dollars, but we went ahead and took a portion of each of those areas, knowing that it's probably going to be, if the university lifts the travel restriction, then students will be able to apply for those dollars, at least the individual one. Into organizational funding, most of that's for events, if people have events in the fall. So we reduced those areas just a little bit to be able to cover that. So we had money still available. And these were the numbers that, as we looked at trends for the past 3-5 years, seems to be the average of what we actually spend in those areas. So that's where we made the decision to make cuts to this section. And I will take any questions about this if there are any.
Senator Thompson.
What are campus's travel restrictions?
So they're currently not allowed to travel unless it's, oh my God, what's the word? I'm having a brain fart. If it's absolutely necessary for them, thank you, hello, thank you. If it's absolutely necessary for them to travel, then they can, but non-essential. Okay, that's what it was, non-essential travel. And so like presenting at conferences, some of these other things would be deemed non-essential travel. And so we wouldn't be able to expend money in those areas.
Are there any other questions about this section? Okay, seeing none, you can move on to the next section.
Okay. The next one is our student advocate. Pretty straightforward as well. Our student advocate has really 4 different areas: their advertising, their programming, and their stipend. Their stipend includes their transition stipend as well for the new student advocate next year. Their programming areas, we made a little reduction there because we made reductions to the programming areas of the student government and committees as well. Their advertising, we reduced it down as well. We got to the 132 number mainly because, again, looking at a trend 2 to 3 years, And then 3 to 5 years, that seems to be what they typically spend. So we put some money in there just in case, but with the caveat that we'll be able to use the overall marketing budget if necessary. The 180 office operations is to pay for the student advocate's phone, the office phone, and we keep it separate so that we know that that's what that money is going towards. So that is our proposal for the student advocate org, and I will take any questions if there are any.
All right, seeing none, you may move on to the next section.
And then the last one, there was no change to our scholarship areas. The special committee on student fees did not make any cuts to educational opportunity funds, so most of our scholarships. So we kept everything exactly the same that it was approved by the Senate, so that didn't have any change. And I will take any questions on those if there are any. Okay, so with that, that is our budget proposal request. If you have questions about any of those sections, I'm happy to answer those, but it is just the first read, so we will we'll vote on this at the next meeting, as long as it's done before July 1st, which is the start of the next fiscal year.
All right, Senator Day.
Sorry, but I thought that this was timely.
Not the association budget. We still have plenty of time, and by plenty time, we have until July 1st, so we'll have another meeting, about 2 more meetings before we actually have to vote on this one. So this one isn't timely.
Okay.
Okay, so we will now move into reports. And I'm the only one who has to give a report. So basically for my report, I mean, I've been working on a lot of different things, including putting together this legislative council. But one of the major things that I've been working on, and something that I will continue working on this summer, is transparency within student government. I think it's very important that we are very transparent with how we vote. And so that means that I think that there should be a record of how every senator votes on everything that we vote on. And so this would be something that we would publish on both our website and on ShockerSync. But I've been trying to come up with a way to do this, because it's obviously, we don't want to take up time in every single meeting to do a roll call vote for every single vote. That would take up way too much time. In the past, they've done something with a QR code, but that to me has a lot of room for error. So I don't really want to use something like that. But there are a lot of schools across the country that have been using clickers. So like you use a clicker to basically send in your vote, and then every clicker is assigned to a person, and then you get instantaneous results for every single vote using a clicker. This is something that I've looked into. I've actually gotten a quote from the company iClicker. And the quote is at, hold on one moment, if I can find it. I believe it was like 2,600 something.
Yeah, about 2,600.
Yeah, about $2,600 and this is a one-time cost. We only have to pay it once this year. And then we wouldn't have, obviously there's no other cost other than buying the system, and then buying around 70 clickers so that there's enough clickers for every senator, and then a couple of extra ones. So I wanted to open the floor to you all to see what your thoughts are about this. If you think it's a good idea, if you think it's a bad idea, if you think, this wouldn't be a good use of our money, because it's a lot of money. But I mean, in my mind, it would be worth it because we would be having better transparency. So I'd like to open the floor to you all. Please raise your hands if you'd like to share anything. Senator Kirk.
Yes, man, I think that is like just a beautiful idea. Being able to be being transparent with everybody in the whole entire university is what we need to do anyway. But having this record to be able to show what senator votes for what, this, that, and the third. One that'll help with, that'll give more to the constituents who they want to vote for. Like, how does the senator vote? Does the senator actually, or any of the representation, represent me the way that we feel like we should? This is exactly what we need to be doing. It's not like you said $2,600, correct, Gabe?
Yeah, it's about that. Yeah.
$2,600 in the grand scheme of things, that is not like, I mean, it's a lot of money, but it's not that much for 70 clickers and a few extra ones. And then a random other question with this is for the other, like the programs and everything, is there any additional costs for those, the additional things that we would have to get with these clickers?
No, so basically we would literally just have to buy the clicker, and then you have to buy like one like system that you plug into your laptop, which obviously, yeah, and that's it, and that's included in the cost.
Okay, so like the system is not like a program you have to buy to download. It's just something you plug in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Senator Zacharias, do you have a motion?
No, I had a point of information. I was just wondering, do we not currently keep record on who votes for what?
We do not.
Okay, I thought we did, and that it was normally taken by, because normally it would just be whoever voted for the least amount of things, and then there's a spreadsheet. But I guess that we weren't using it, even though there was a capacity to use it. So
it wasn't used accurately as it probably could have. And when we took votes that weren't recorded votes, which happened from time to time, then there wouldn't have been a record of a breakdown per person of who voted which way. So yes, the spreadsheet was there, but only when we took actual roll call hard votes, not necessarily for all the minor votes we took.
Okay, Senator Ratcliffe.
I just want to say I think it's a great idea. Also, I think that it opens up the ability for senators to be held accountable for what they do and do not vote for, and for anybody who chooses to abstain from voting, because that's also a point that, you know, if you're abstaining from votes, then you're allowing that opportunity for your voice to not be heard. And so anybody else that is watching or viewing, you know, the live streams, or that wants to keep an eye on things and the affairs going on right now, that need to be able to know whether or not we are properly representing our constituents. And so I feel, you know, it's a great idea in my opinion. So
great, thank you very much for sharing. Senator Thompson.
Is the $2,600 quote from whatever company that was the cheapest option, or?
So I haven't looked at any other options. I will look more into it, but I wanted to get more like conversation going here so that I could see kind of how people were thinking about this before I went ahead and like did the work to get other quotes and things like that.
Okay, yeah, I like the idea.
Yeah, but this is the company that there are, I don't remember off the top of my head like what schools use it, but this is a very common company that a lot of universities use, and a lot of like sororities, fraternities. This is a very common company for universities to partner with. Senator Mounts.
I personally think it is a really good idea. This is something, since I joined, 2 years ago, I was really wondering like how we were going to approach like holding people accountable while doing votes. And I know that some of the chairs, especially when I was a chair last year, like I specifically recorded every vote by roll call, but it's a lot easier when you only have 10 people. And we had to post those because we included our roll on there, which was publicly posted on like Shocker Sync. But I think with having the system, it'll make meetings faster. It's very, very easy to hit a button. Instead of having to like count and then recount and like, oh, are we sure that we counted right that time, et cetera. So not only that, but it's just I feel like there are very few occasions where we do take actual Senate, like voice votes in the Senate, roll votes in the Senate, and we do them for like mostly just like funding bills, like the budget. So, you know, they're really, to our constituents, there's a very, very small voting record, if any, of any of the senators. And I know when I'm looking at like my actual representatives and senators in the state house, like I'm looking at how they vote on certain bills to make sure that like they're following through on their promises. So this is something that I think is going to be very great for our Senate. And I think it's going to, at least I hope it's going to spur some more people to get involved. And with that, I yield back to the chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Senator Mounts. Senator Zacharias.
Yeah, so I was wondering, when you said posting it onto the website, did you mean Shocker Sync, or did you also mean putting it prominently on wichita.edu so that even more students could view it?
I meant both, so that we would have it both on our Shocker Sync and very openly, like there would be a tab where you could click and see how everyone's voting. Yeah, there's a lot of, I want to make some changes to our website overall so that we have a more transparent, like actual website, and that we're not just using Shocker Sync, because I know that most students have a hard time navigating Shocker Sync. All right, I know Senator Flores, you had your hand up earlier. Did you mean to put it down? I want to just make sure that you're all good. You can just raise your hand.
No, I just wanted to say that I think it's a good idea to spend that. Like, obviously, if there are cheaper options that are still like, you know, good options, then we should go for it. But I think that regardless of the price, like, you know, holding elected officials like accountable, like, I think it would be really hard to find a price that's too high, you know?
Great, thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter? Yeah, Senator Zacharias. Wow, sorry.
It's okay. So I did have one other concern. Well, I think the most important thing is making sure we're holding each other accountable and that there's justified reasoning behind our votes. But I did want to ask a question on how the voting system would be seen at the meeting. Just that way there isn't any, I don't know how to say this. If there are senators that are going to be persuaded into voting a certain way because it's seen that the majority is voting a certain way. Just because I thought of something that one of the previous senators said, and I don't want it to make it seem like we are bullying the minority into voting with the majority. So that's just one concern that I wanted to bring forward, and also talk about how we would be viewing that live voting in Senate.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple of options with this. Like we can show how everyone's voting on the screen if we choose to do it that way, but I can understand how that might deter someone who's in the minority from voting in their actual opinion and how they would like to vote. But we can also not do that. So it can just be a record that is kept like on the laptop, and then we can see it, and then I can share just kind of the same way we do it now, where like, you know, when people raise their hand, it's not we're like, Senator Babin, you voted no. Why'd you do that? You know? So I think that there's definitely ways that we can do it, but more than likely how it'll be done. More than likely how it will be done is that it will just be kept on the laptop, and then we'll announce the results. And then afterward is when we will publish how the actual vote goes. But, you know, there is still the option of we could have a running tally on the projector while we're having our meeting. So there are options, and we can kind of gauge, you know, after the decision is made and we've spent the money and we have it, how we want to do it. Does that answer your question? Okay, great. Anyone else have anything else that they would like to add? Great. Well, that completes my report. That's what I wanted to talk about. I will give you all an update when we have our next meeting in 2 weeks. And with a final, we can do some remarks and announcements if anyone would like to make an announcement. Yeah, Gabe.
So just to make sure that kind of everyone understands the purpose of this group, and I know that Speaker Babin sent the email out about it. So as of right now, as long as we are in this state of emergency with the student government, this council is required to be in existence. It does act as the pseudo Senate, so it has the full authority of the Senate. It's just a little bit more condensed. So I think at some point, and we will review this probably mid through the summer, review whether or not the emergency order needs to stay in place. But do just keep in mind that we're looking right now at every 2 weeks having this meeting as we kind of go through things. The biggest point of this body is, of course, to provide the check on the executive because the state of emergency does give President Khan a lot of authority and a lot of power to do whatever she wants, and now that she will, right, because she understands, but it does give her a lot of power to do a lot of things, and this body has the responsibility to whether say yes or no to those things. And so at this point, there are no further executive orders that she is looking at, but if there are any that come in that for somehow manipulate the bylaws or the statutes, which she's entitled to do, then we'll bring it to this body to either say yes or no to those things. So don't also be surprised if by mid-July we say, all right, we're done, and we lift the order and problem solve. So just do keep that in mind and bear with us because this is the first time that we've had something like this. This is super, super new to us, and so far it's going okay, I guess. We'll see. But if you do have any questions or anything, please do let Olivia know, or sorry, Speaker Babin know, or myself, and we're more than happy to help answer those questions. So that's one. Two, I don't know if I think I shared this at the last Senate meeting, maybe not, but the Shock and Support Locker is open on Mondays now. So still Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, still doing the curbside pickup. So if you have any peers that need resources or need anything from the Shock and Support Locker, please encourage them to go there. We have lots of baby products, lots of food, and lots of hygiene products, as well as gift cards for students that need that additional support as well. And that is all that I have for you all.
Great. Senator Kirk.
Yes, I wanted to give a reminder to everyone. This Friday, I believe at 7. Yes, at 7 o'clock is the candlelight at the MGC and at WSU. And I'm really encouraging everyone to come. Not just to support your college, but just to support everybody. We need to be able to not just be a light, but we need to just be there to remind everybody that in the middle of all of this crap, there is still light and there is still going to be good. We need to remind the university that we might be going through crap, but we are still Shockers. And we're still going to be there for you. And the government, the student government's there. We're not going anywhere. And just support and do whatever you can for anyone. Even if that's just a random text message to somebody saying, hey, I hope you're doing okay. Just a little bit can be a lot for somebody.
Thank you. I'd also like to just, because I know a lot of people don't really know where the MGC quad is. It's on the east side of the RSC. So like, you know how there's like that big area where sometimes they'll do like concerts and things like that. It's just right across, like, just kind of like just down the way. It's just, there's like little statues that represent each org in the MGC council. So I also encourage everyone to go. It's a great opportunity. You know, remember our place, remember that we are there to listen and advocate, not to take up space. Yeah, and I really hope that everyone attends. I will be there, so you can come hang out with me if you want. Stand near me, I guess. It's not really hanging out, but all right, is there anyone else who wishes to say anything? All right, seeing none, with a silent roll call, I officially call the first meeting of the Emergency Legislative Council finished.